Hi everybody, welcome back to the PTC podcast. I'm here today with Benjamin Owen, who's a transformational coach. How you doing, Ben?
I'm good. I'm excited.
Good, welcome. We're talking just now about, you do a lot of coaching people. You've gone from the physical PT world now into this sort of, would you call it professional or would you call it aspirational coaching? What would you say?
Yeah, it's actually quite hard to pin down. It's personal and professional. I think what I've learned from coaching professional people is professional problems are just personal problems in disguise. So I think what I would call myself is like a leadership coach, professional coach, personal coach. And I've been doing that. I actually, even though I'm full time in this now and just doing that, I think I've been doing this for way longer than I care to acknowledge.
How long have you been doing it for?
I started a PT business in 2011, like 2010, 2011. And I was doing like boot camps and professional athlete coaching. And what I used to love about that part of the job was not the stuff in the gym, which I enjoyed, and it was amazing. I really, really enjoyed that part. But was sitting down like this, talking about programs, talking about goals, talking about the blocks and the obstacles in the way. And I just really found so much value in that. So yeah, it's literally been probably about 14, 15 years now.
So did you do both then and then just make the transfer across into just transformational coaching?
Yeah, I think so I started, the boot camp was such a big, a well-leveraged business. So I would rock up in the morning, I would do one boot camp session, then I'd have the rest of my day just to read and research and develop myself. So I did my, my badges, my masters, my PGCE. I did internships.
So what did you do all them in? What did you study?
So undergrad, sport and exercise science. Postgrad was strength and conditioning. Really randomly, I did my PGCE in adult learning. So like how adults learn. It was really interesting because I came back to North Wales from Cardiff and there was no gyms. There wasn't the gym infrastructure that we have today. And so I was trying to make my strength and conditioning business work, but what I noticed really quickly that athletes didn't want to pay the money that I wanted to charge. If I wanted to go and try and work with a professional athlete or a team, there was no professional teams in North Wales, and I was like, right, okay, so I thought, do you know what I'm going to go and do? I'm going to go and work for a professional football club. And I quickly realized I didn't enjoy it. On the outside, professional football looks sparkly and great, but you're dealing with self-entitled, arrogant, sometimes resistant guys, and I was like, do you know what, this just isn't me. Came back to North Wales and then opened my own transformation business up. And that, I think what had happened really was like I was trying to find the best way to help people transform, and the method I was using at that point was physical transformation. And you know yourself, when you've got someone in the gym, you're pushing them hard, they are going to develop emotionally, physically, mentally. But what I loved about transformation training was the ripple effect. Like when someone transformed their body, how that would affect them as a parent, leader, manager, how it would affect their life, how much more confident they would be. And yeah, that was what I really enjoyed about it. And I found that the most effective modality for that wasn't just the training room. It wasn't just the gym. It was the gym plus the hour or half an hour I spent doing this with someone, and I just found I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I would because I loved being in the gym. Yeah. And so I just doubled down on that.
So what, if you can think back, what were the major things you learned in the How Adults Learn course?
Oh my gosh. I was quite fortunate in school. I had a really good school. I had a great supportive parents, and I had really good friends. My academic career was very, very linear, very easy. Nothing really derailed me. And I realized that so many people had not been given the same start as me. I was like, I wasn't in a private school, I was in a public school, but I'd always been a high flyer, really, really good at what I did, really good grades. But there was like a a real body of people that had not even learned how to read. You know, I was like, wow. And actually that really helped me when it came to teaching nutrition, because I think when we're teaching nutrition and training, we assume a level of competence and knowledge and understanding which is actually way higher than most people. Like, you know, when you start talking to people, they have this level of knowledge around food that is, they just don't even understand how much protein to eat or what is protein. So what the adult learning course taught me to do is actually start at the absolute granular. I'm going to explain this to you like a 6-year-old because I know you've never been sat down and taught this. And that was what really helped me with my results from the fitness, because I literally sit in a room with someone and said, how much protein do you need in a day? And they wouldn't have the foggiest. And I would ask that question, not just to sell my transformation packages, but it was just like to point out to people how little they knew about the fundamentals of eating, moving, training. And it was just quite a great place to start from. So it stopped me being complacent with how much someone would understand. Because, you know, we always assume a level of competence and that sort of stuff.
So is that a major difference then, like in the sense where, I mean, because you're kind of describing the fact that adults will have to learn the same as a 6-year-old in order to make it sink, but instead of presuming that they know what you know.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if you had the same thing, is that sometimes we're so entertained, we're so enthusiastic as trainers about the complexity of training, the complexity of nutrition. We learn all of the depth, we go really deep into it, all these different ways to train and eat, when actually it's the basics that get the results. And I think what happened was early 20s, I would want to make nutrition and training really complicated. Yeah. And then as I learned more, I made it simpler and simpler and simpler. And I think most trainers go through that. And now I'm at the point now where it's like I want to make it so simple, like what I call 6-year-old simple, is that it doesn't have, you don't have to have any barriers to be able to transform. You don't have to have any barriers to do the right things like drink water, eat more protein, that sort of stuff. So I think it just helped with my results. Yeah. That was the biggest thing for me. And it actually became easier to coach people, and they got better results. They felt way more agency, and they felt more in control. And that's, my background helped me with that. And yeah, I think that it was going from complex to simple in probably a 3 to 5 year period made me realize, oh, actually, do you know what? This is how transformation's done. Yeah. It's not about making it complicated. It's not about making it super academic. The simpler, the easier I can make it, the more accessible I can make it, the more likely is someone's going to change.
You also have to, it comes from, I guess it comes a lot from the first few conversations where you have to see where their gaps are. Do you know what I mean? And then you fill in the gaps with very simple recipes and remedies. Because I've had guys come to me who are Ironman triathletes, World Championship, whatever, this coming up this year. This guy's qualified for it, but he's got back pain. So, right, he needs a rehab program. And as soon as we start talking and as soon as he starts moving, I'm like, oh, you haven't done the basics. Yeah. You're out on the bike and the road and the pool all week. It's like you can't really even balance on one leg, you know. So I'm going to start you off like just moving and just moving slowly. I don't have to sit down and think, right, well, he's going to need this marginal gain on this thing and this kind of post-activation potentiation to translate into his bike posture on his sitting thing, and then get him open up. And it's like, no, look, he can't even lunge without wobbling. Do you know what I mean? Like so his neural capacities, whatever. In my head, it's so simple. So like, let's just do all these basic stuff, and then to this day, he's still singing my praises. I'm like, mate, all I did was slow you down and just plug in the basics. Like, can you control a movement? Yeah,
and I think that's what we do, is we assume because they're world champions, because they are that level, that they're going to know all that stuff. And I think that's what, you know, the point I actually really did discover was just because someone's same in business, like, and this is what I'm finding as I've left the training side of personal transformation, is that I go into work with a CEO, an MD, a high-performing person, I assume, or we assume, that on the outside, this person has it all together.
Yeah.
And you realise the chasm of personal performance things that are not in place. Like, I was speaking to a film director. She was going to be directing Tom Hanks' next 3 films. And she didn't have the coping mechanisms in place to deal with all of the stresses that's going to cause. And that's what's really interesting, is you go into these places and people haven't got... and this is like the same with the athletes. Like, an athlete will have performance director, a coach, maybe a lifting coach, maybe a nutritionist, massage therapist, chiropractor, osteo, whatever. They'll build a team, and then you'll get someone in business and they'll think, like, I can just do it all myself.
Yeah.
And this is what I noticed, is that we assume that these high-flying people have all this information and knowledge, and they don't. And that is where I really enjoyed that transition of coaching. And you start to see, like, the tiny things make the biggest difference. Like, even, like, I bought in, like, my 2-litre bottle of water. I carry that everywhere, because if I'm hydrated every single day, I'm optimal. I'm not going to have headaches. I'm not going to have cravings. I'm not going to have aches and pains as much. And you ask someone who's leading a company, they're running a company, 50 to 100 people, 1,000 people, like, do you have a hydration strategy? And they look at you as if you've got a second head. No, I have 3 cups of coffee, I'll have some water with tea. And you're like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really nice to see that the things that you learn in the training world carry over to business and personal, like, leadership so well. And again, you assume these high-flying people have this dialed in, and they don't. They really don't. And that's where I do a lot of my work.
So what is that work? So how do you, how do you help a high-flying person? They'll get on the phone to you and they'll be like, Ben, I'm struggling. This is my issue.
Yeah.
What happens?
That's a really good question. So there's a formula I work through. I think that the first thing, I sit down with someone, and we talked about this in the workshop. I know we've got another workshop here in the training room. Is the first thing I think that you need is an impossible goal. So an impossible goal is a goal that you cannot achieve in your current state. So, for example, I know Keith runs. You probably could do a 10K. You could probably do a half marathon. I don't know. But a marathon for you is an impossible goal right now, with maybe the volume of training that you're doing. So an impossible goal for you would be a marathon, ultra-marathon. And the reason it's an impossible goal, you cannot achieve it without a dramatic shift in yourself. There's got to be some sort of change. And whether an impossible goal is a revenue goal, it's an impact goal, or it's something like a freedom goal, is that in your current state, in the way that you're currently running your life, there needs to be a dramatic shift. So that's the first thing I do, because unless you've got the goal, how do you reverse engineer the strategy? And so that's the first thing. A lot of people don't have them. They think they've got goals, but all they've got is what I would call an A or a B type goal. So an A type goal is something that you say, I'm going to train 3 times a day, 3 times this week. That's an A goal. It just points you in the right direction. A B type goal is, I'm going to run a 10K, when you've probably already run a 10K in the past. Whereas a C type goal, an impossible goal, is something that's radically different. It's going to shift you so much more than you think was possible. You have to have a shift in who you're being. And when people have that, it's amazing what happens. It's incredible what happens, because even if you create it in your fitness, you see people have transformations in their parenting, in their leadership, in their relationship. So there's actually a bit of thinking I want to share, actually. There's a famous American psychologist called Abraham Maslow. Maslow had the hierarchy of needs. We talked about in the last workshop. I always share this in the workshop I do, is that he said, in any given moment, we're making 1 or 2 decisions. We're either moving forward into growth, or we're choosing back in comfort. Literally moment to moment. So this could be, do I get up in the morning and go training? That's a growth decisions to come to the training room and do a workout. Comfort decision, 30 more minutes in bed. And every single time we make a comfortable decision, we don't move back towards comfort. We actually move back towards psychopathology. And that, for me, was when I first learned this, like it was life changing, because I realized how many people I could see doing that in the transformation space. Like, you know, you'll probably notice it yourself, skipping workouts, not eating the right foods, smoking, drinking, choosing things that felt comfortable and easy in the moment, but led them to a life that they didn't want. And I realized that unless you've got a goal or an impossible goal, how can you choose the right decision towards something? So the first thing I do with someone is set a really clear, impossible goal. It doesn't need to be a 12-week goal. It could be a 3-year goal. But what it does, it just puts the North Star back in the sky. And I think what happened for me, like I was always had my North Star in the sky. Through my 20s, when I built 2 very, very successful businesses, I always had the North Star in the sky. But do you know what?
What was your North Star?
The big gym.
Right.
The big gym was always that I had this vision in my mind. It was a big gym with a big red carpet, and it was amazing. It was, you know, and I got to there, and then my life fell apart a little bit. You know, I got divorced. I got a bit lost. The gym struggled. I had financial struggle after the divorce. It's just, I was like, and what I did was I stopped setting goals. I just like played really small for probably about 2 to 3 years. And I don't think there's ever been a time in my life where I've struggled as much emotionally. Like I wasn't depressed, but I was definitely not in a good place. And then it was when I saw this about, you know, growth and comfort, and I was like, do you know what? I've just been living in a reactionary, comfortable, playing small state for these couple of years, and I'm not feeling myself. And I was like, do you know what? This is where it all changed. And I changed, put some big goals on the board. And again, my life started moving in the right way. So
how does it revert to psychopathology? Like, what's that? That's not what I was expecting you to say.
Yeah. So psychopathology is a state where it's not an optimal state. So psychopathology is anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. It's like kind of that happens. So the way it starts is that, for example, you go through the week and you don't go to the gym, you have a couple of cigarettes, or you drink a bottle of wine 2 nights out of 3. You don't make great decisions. On Friday, you're either going to feel proud or pissed off. You know, that's kind of how you're going to feel on a Friday about how your week's gone. And I saw, even in my mum's life and my client's life, they get to Friday and they'd chosen the comfortable decisions to do the easy things. And people are anxious. Mm-hmm. They are struggling emotionally. They're going out snorting cocaine on the weekends. They're drinking to excess. Their relationships aren't optimal. And the reason that they think that's happening is because it's just in a habit. But what they're actually doing is they're choosing to numb the what I would call soul. Their soul is like, I'm not self-actualizing. And Maslow said this as well, is that it's as important for a human being to self-actualize as it is to breathe. That's what he said. It's like it's so important for a human being to self-actualize, because the biggest threat to your life as an adult man, like the biggest cause of death for men under 50 is suicide. And why is suicide the biggest cause? It's because it's psychopathology. They're in that state of, I can't see another way to improve my life other than to end it. And I was like, wow, it's changeable. It's easily to change as well. And just because you've been in that state for 3-4 years, it doesn't mean you can't change it in 12 weeks. And what I started to see is when people would come into my office, they would set an impossible goal, they would just start moving in the right direction towards discomfort and growth, but away from that state of I really am struggling emotionally.
It's interesting because there's so many people that are the character you described who are just doing nothing for whatever reason. They're just doing nothing. And the people who are most likely to succeed are the ones that will take the first few steps and reach out. And like the first steps are always the hardest.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
the hardest.
To go from 0 to 1. Do you know? Once you're at 1, you can start moving because you have moved. You know, you've been nudged over the start line, you know. But there's so many people who are just that's their norm, what you described. They just go through the week. They don't go to the gym. They go home. They watch TV. They get back up. They go to work. Mundane, run through. And that's their normal, you know. The hardest thing I always see is how do you get those people to come on, like shake the let's go, let's do something.
Do you know what? I think there's two things. You either decide or it gets decided for you. Like, I don't know if you experience the same thing. You'd have someone join the gym and you'd be like, oh, why are you joining? And there's one or two things. I've just been to the doctor. I'm pre-diabetic. I've got cancer. I've got this. I've got that. You know, it's forced upon them.
Yeah.
And they get a chance to decide. Or they make a conscious decision. Like, you know, kids arriving. That's a big one. Marriage. Like, some people get married and they're like, do you know what? I don't want to get married in this state. It's like there's life events that kind of help. The saddest ones are heart attacks and strokes and that sort of thing. I think I had so many men and women who came to the gym saying, I'm here because I've just had a heart attack and I need to go and rehab and I need to start changing. And I think that it's a second chance. And so it's kind of interesting, like what will get that person to change.
It's the same with pain. Pain fits in there as well.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, this is hurting.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that's one of the reasons that, and again, it's like you can either decide, you can go, right, do you know what, I'm actually just going to have a goal, or it will get decided for you, and that's, I think, where pain comes in.
So how do you then, because I find a lot of people, they just don't have a belief in themselves. Like, the impossible goal is this, it's whatever, let's just stay in the physical lane. It's to do a really big thing, but like, I could never do that. That's not for me. I'd love to, but I'm too heavy. I'm this, I'm that, you know.
Yeah.
I'd love to, Ben, but you know, it's just with the kids, mate, with work. I think I'm going to spend the next 6 months going back and forth to Saudi.
Yeah.
You know. But it really is like you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah, it's.
Do you have that like that social, and do you have that like internal proof for? You know, I think we spoke about the idea of like a stack of the undeniable truth.
Yeah.
You know, but not even a stack. Do you have 1 ounce of where you have achieved, where you have done something that you said, you know what, I'm going to do that, and then you do it, and something that didn't involve buying or like the type A goal that you said?
Yeah. So going back to like, and even like my system that I work through with someone, the first one's vision, the second one is obstacles. Is like you can have a vision. So some people are like, oh, I'd love to do a marathon, and then they're just going to state the obstacle. So I love to do a marathon, Keith, but I'm driving to Saudi every single, not driving, but going to that. So what we want to do is we want to work on, is the obstacle internal or external? And if it's an internal obstacle, it's just a bullshit belief. And that's where a coach or a trainer or someone, like a group of people, can just say, oh, you can do that. Stop whining, get crack on.
So what would be an internal? So
an internal obstacle could be something like self-sabotage. It could be a lack of belief. It can be you're thinking about the past. We talked about the past in the workshop. I talk a lot about present, past, and future. It could be that because you've failed in the past, you've got a belief that you'll fail again in the future and you'll recreate the past. Or it could just be that you haven't got agency. So agency is the belief that we can make change to our lives. Mm-hmm. And if we do make that change, that our lives will change. So I think that what you've got to, if it's internal, it's easily changed. You can change that in a coaching session in 5 minutes, which is great. Like sometimes with clients, they're like, oh, I can't possibly do this. I'm like, right, by the end of today, you'd have reached out to those 3 CEOs for those partnerships, and they just go and do it. And they're like, oh, I never can swear, but they're like, they're like, okay, you're right. I was like, one of the guys that I'm coaching right now, he's got a landscape gardening business, and he's like, oh, I can't put a job thing out. There's no one in my local area. I'm like, dude, you live near London. People will drive to your area to get work. And he put it out, and he just texted me saying, fuck you. And I was like, it was just, sometimes all you need is someone to push you beyond your self-limitations.
But these guys, what's interesting you're saying is, because I've had these chats with people, the people that are sitting with you are like, I need change, I'm ready for change, I'm here for change, how do I change? Oh yeah, I kind of knew that's how I should change, but now you've said it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Because this is my type. I'm that person. Whereas I've had conversations with people recently, and they're looking for someone to help them in their business. And like, why don't you come up to Damac? We have a gym there. We have people. No, there's nobody good. Like, what do you mean there's nobody good? Have you looked? No, everyone's terrible. You haven't even looked.
Yeah.
You have not even taken the first step. You know, you've not. That's a waste of time. The return on investment of that time is exactly what you want to do. You know, but this person in particular is just, they already know everything, and I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna just give you some space and leave it at that.
Yeah, I think there's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and she talks about the idea of fixed versus
Ben, I
growth
promise you,
model.
he's already read it.
Yeah,
He's already read it.
Oh man, those
completed it.
Yeah, and do you know what? With those folks, I'm like, yeah, I don't try and.
So this is it.
Yeah, I would never try and. I think this is something, the dynamic of coaching. You've got to find, part of what I'm doing on calls and I'm speaking to people is I'm working out, is this person coachable?
Yeah.
You know, that's a big part of my role as a coach, is to work out, is this person going to go, and if they make a commitment, are they going to go and take action? And if they're not, I will not work with them. It's not something I'm going to entertain, because it's not efficacy. The efficacy is it's not ethical to do that.
You're also going to be banging your head against the wall for half of it, being like, I just need you to take, like, you can take a horse to water, do you know?
Yeah.
If they're not willing to go for it.
I think a little part of that though as well is what we were talking about before, is that they believe the effort is so big versus the reward. So like most people, when they're thinking about going into fitness, they think that they have to destroy themselves in the gym for 5 days a week in order to elicit a change, whereas actually drinking 3 liters of water, eating a bit of protein and doing 2 sessions a week is enough for most people to see a transformation. I don't know if you agree. Most people will get from going from the couch to 2 resistance training sessions a week, getting the steps right, drinking enough water and eating enough protein. They get those things right, they're going to be on the right track. Whereas they think they need to do 7 sessions a week, they need to get every calorie correct, they can't ever eat sugar again. And so I think there's a part of the I know crowd, the fixed man, they have a belief of how hard things will be when it's actually nowhere near that.
One of the bigger things as well is do you have a way or a strategy to instill someone with a bit of vision? Because that's I meet people all the time. They come to the gym. For me, I'm in pain, but I also get a ton of, I just want to lose weight and tone up. It's like, okay, well, that's not going to be what keeps you coming to the gym at 6 a.m. for the next 6, 8, 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, how do we get? And there was an old strategy in these old PT sales meetings, and I see some people going on about it still. You got to ask 5 whys. It was like, that's just quite intrusive after the second why. Why? It's like, but I do believe in there somewhere, for the people who've stepped into the gym looking for change, there is a deeper why, but how do you connect that to them and get them to verbalize it? One of the things you do in your workshop, which is very simple, is there's the question on the piece of paper, here's the line, put the word on the line. So when you ask me the question verbally, my neurons go ping, 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 and I have the answer. And then immediately I justify not saying it because my own obstructions, my own ego, my own vulnerability, my own whatever. But when it needs to go on the line, you got to externalize it, put it down. It's like, okay, there it is. Now the next question moves on from that question. So I can't faff around here. We have to go step by step by step. But I always think that people, like, you must have a vision, you must have a goal because you're here. How do we get that? And how do I get you to be really confident that there's a way to get there? I just need to hear what it is first. That's not just, lose weight and tone up.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that I had the same frustration. I think that's what, maybe the same path we both trodden is like I would sit with hundreds of people a week in a consultation room, and I would look at the commonalities between the people that got the long-term transformations and the people that didn't. And like, there would be a third would get a great transformation, a third would just change a little bit, and there would be a third that would stay the same or even get fatter. And I was like, well, what is the difference? And it was always the people that saw themselves using their body for something better and different and more challenging that would have the long-term change. But those who would just doing it for vanity in the short term would always go back. Right? You know, it was a really like so. And we were talking about the treks that you guys organise, is that someone would book a Kilimanjaro trek and go, oh, holy shit, I actually really do need to get rid of the 3 stone to do that trek. And then when they've done that trek, they go and do the next trek. And there's always something in the pipeline. And like that's kind of what has to happen, is that we actually, if you want to make your present better, you've got to make your future bigger. And it is that's the truth. You have to improve. And so I think what happens with people, they take a shot on a goal. It doesn't pay out. It doesn't get them the result they want. And they're like, oh, I'm never going to go again. They over-calibrate. And that's like, you know, I did a half marathon after lockdown. It's just like, it's quite funny because I had Fast Ben written on my top. And I trained for the whole of lockdown. And I was like, you know, I'll just do a half marathon with my buddies. And I used to be a sprinter, and so the thought of a half is just like, that's just excruciating. And I got to 10 miles in and my legs just blew up. I just gone too fast, totally mistimed everything, my nutrition, I needed a wee, and I couldn't run again after 10 miles. The last 3 miles I was running, and this guy from the sideline just shouted, "Don't walk fast, Ben." It's just like, so embarrassing. But I think what it was is like,
did you know the guy now?
No, it was even worse. Like, but it was brilliant. I was like, and I smiled and took it humbly because it was funny. Because I had the balls to put Fast Ben on my top, which is great. But when I finished it and I didn't get the time I wanted, well, what did I do? I actually sulked for like 3-4 months and didn't want to run.
Right.
But then I realised, like, why didn't I go back and pick that up and go again at this? And I only recently realised that, and I was like, right, do you know what? I'm going to go again. And I think that's what we've got to do. Let me just say,
why did you? What was the why?
What was the why?
You said, why didn't you go back? So you sulked for 3 or 4 months, and only recently did you realise why you didn't.
Yeah, I think I think just life got in the way. We had a second kid, and there's other priorities, moving to Dubai. But I didn't focus on the goal, and also I had a defeatist mindset. I'd let myself, and I didn't. You know, I think that's what's great, is that I'm really, really self-aware, and I let that happen.
Yeah.
And I just needed a buddy to say, "Hey, man, are you ever going?" It was my brother actually said, "Are you going to beat that 90 or not?" And I was like,
"You had 90 minutes."
90 minutes. It was a 90 minutes. I got 93.
That's really fast.
Yeah, it was fast.
That's fast, Ben.
Yeah, it was. But I finished in 96 minutes. And
Mate, I ran the whole thing once. I barely scraped 2 hours. You were still beating me.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It was a great experience because it was something I wasn't good at.
Yeah.
Trained for it. I failed, but failure really is just you have a go and you go again.
Well, look, since you're being so vulnerable, Ben, let me share. I booked a marathon, 2016. Ran a marathon. My goal was, don't care about the time, just going to run the whole thing. Cramped up, 29k, right? Bum. Before I even finished, I was like, fuck, I've got to do this again. I have to do this whole thing again because I didn't hit my goal. Because I'm walking. Because I just completely disrespected the challenge. I disrespected the distance, and I got humbled. And if the marathon at the time was on Beach Road, so for the last
Dubai, so it was in Dubai.
Yeah, it was in Dubai.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So it's basically, long story short, it's all the way down, U-turn all the way back. 13 miles, U-turn all the way back. 21 U-turn back. On the last 10k, I was walking. I'm thinking, I'm an hour away at my fastest time here, and I'm walking right next to me. Everything's cramped. And that's the 10k stretch where all your friends and people you know in Dubai are and there you are trudging along. I didn't have Fast Keith on my t-shirt, but it was just as humiliating. Come on, Keith, you can do it. I'm like, if I take 10 steps, my calf and my quad is going to cramp. I'm walking. So then second one I did in Vietnam, and it was Ha Long Bay, which I thought pretty flat. Can't wait for this will be decent. Client of mine booked it, and I was like, I can't let you do all this training by yourself, I'll do it with you, because I still have to hit my goal of running the whole thing. And then little did we realize that Ha Long Bay is 2 bays with a massive Asian Golden Gate bridge. And the bridge wasn't the tough bit, it was the water sea level up to the bridge, super steep. And on the way down on the out, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to walk this bit. Okay, I'll kind of adjust my goal, I'll forgive myself walking this bit. But did walk it, and then later on I had to walk another little bit towards the last 3 or 4k. All right, I have to do it again. Abu Dhabi Marathon, again, I walked. Different reasons, long story short, preparation wasn't optimal. 42k is a beast.
It's
you
a
know,
beast.
especially
It's a
I'm
beast.
a heavy runner. I'm not fast Ben. Like I'm not an athlete. You know, I'm big 92. Maybe if I've been training for a marathon, I'll scrape under 89. You know, if I get all the training right. But it kills me. But the goal is still there. I still haven't done it. I still haven't just ran the whole thing. I don't care about my time.
No, I think that's a big one, and I like how you point that out. Is that the goal can be whatever you like to run a marathon without walking is good enough. Like that's a phenomenal goal.
For me, that's way harder than I thought.
Yeah. Oh, I'm here with it on that one. Is that, and that is where I think going back to like what is it? I love it how you've gone and taken multiple shots. I think I did it. Sulked, and I'm doing it again in February, Burge to Burge.
Nice.
And
Destiny's doing that as well.
Yeah, Destiny's doing it exactly right. And it's like you just take these multiple shots, and it's in the failure and the getting back up. And there's actually something that, so a lot of what I teach, a lot of people is about this thing called Part X. It's a part of us that's there to stop us from moving forwards, and it's a self-sabotaging mechanism. It stops you. So what a lot of people's self-sabotage is they confuse a knockback with a knockout. It's what's called hopelessness. So it removes hope. So I do the marathon, do the half marathon. I finish, don't finish in the time I want, didn't want. And then I don't see that as just a little bit of failure. I see it as a complete knockout. I'm a total failure. I'm never going to go again. And that is when in terms of goal achievement and goal pursuit, you're going to have failures. You're going to have times when you come in the gym and you don't have the perfect session. You're going to have weeks where life just throws you a curveball.
Yeah, not only in the physical, but you're going to have that in your relationship. You're going to have that in your professional life, in your whatever hobby that you have. It didn't work out. You didn't get the thing.
Yeah, I think that's you say about the relationship. Like I got divorced. Like I had this picture perfect marriage, the wedding, I had the really big white wedding and then huge wedding, 5-6 week honeymoon, beautiful, and then it was this picturesque perfect relationship that ended, and like for 2, maybe 3 years, I was, really in my mind creating that as a huge failure. I'd failed, but it wasn't, and then that's finishing that relationship allowed me to have a really phenomenal relationship. Now I've got 2 beautiful kids, I've got a wife, and I for a long time was so embarrassed and humiliated, but that was just a part of me that was there to stop me from having that amazing future. And this is not just in relationship, it happens in goals, it happens all over the place. So I think so many people do that, is that they'll have a goal. If they get injured early on and they can't achieve it, they don't reset the goal. Yeah. And that's sometimes all it is. It's simply just like, hey, okay, part of commitment is recommitment. We're just going to recommit you to the goal. So that's the next part is actually the transformation. So it's like vision is the first step I take people through. Then it's the obstacles, like that sort of stuff is an obstacle. It's an internal obstacle. The next part is transformation. And transformation for me is an 80-20. It's like, where am I going to focus on the 20% of the actions that create 80% of the results, but also where am I going to let go of 80% of the things that don't serve me anymore? And for me, in the last, moving to Dubai, letting go of the gym, like 80% of my day was spent running the gym. Mm-hmm. And like people came to me and said, I can't believe you're walking away from the gym. I can't believe you're leaving the gym. It's a great business. And I was like, I knew it just wasn't I didn't want to have that anymore. It was like 80% of my week was spent managing contracts, memberships, doing some training staff, managing staff's expectations and what we had to do as a company, the financials. Although it's not super complicated, it was a lot of bandwidth. Yeah. And 20% of the time was doing coaching. And I was like, actually, I looked at how much money I was bringing in. I was like, well, 80% of my money comes from 20% of what I do, which is coaching. So I was like, well, actually, we've just had COVID.
And by coaching, you mean this transformational coaching, not physical gym coaching?
Yeah, so I call coaching sitting like this, across the table or over on Zoom, that's coaching. In the gym, I call it training. Like you're training someone. So you can be a coach, and I think it's so I had to let go of the training identity, because if you would have asked me even 5 years ago, oh, who are you, Ben? I'm a trainer. I loved being a trainer. But it was a real identity shift, becoming a full-time coach. And actually, my Facebook, my Instagram was just full of people that knew me as a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started talking about this thing called coaching, no one was biting. No one really kind of, I had my clients, but people are like, oh, he's all of a sudden he's talking about this mindset stuff all the time, and not the physical side. So you go through this phase where, like, you've just let go of 80% of your identity. It is strange. It's like different, and that's the thing, is like, if you are in pursuit of a goal, maybe you're a drinker. You see, that you're right. Part of your identity is 3 nights out of 4. I go out, I party, have drink, and then you say, well, do you know what? I'm going to complete a marathon, and you let go of that part of your identity. There's going to be this lonely phase. Yeah. And I think that some people don't like that discomfort, and the biggest indicator that you're going through that is disappointment. Like, you're going to disappoint people with your actions. Like I had people come up to me in the gym saying, I'm really disappointed you're leaving. I'm really disappointed you're not in the gym anymore. I'm like, it's my life,
Yeah,
it's just like, I love training you, and when I go back and I train with in the gym, I have my old clients saying, "No, it's not the same, Ben. It's not the same." I'm like, that's not my fault.
Yeah. No, the worst thing you can do is get stuck in that pleasing circle, because unfortunately, no matter what they say, they're going to leave first. Do you know what I mean? They're going to leave next, because I was saying this to Destiny, every gym member is going to cancel at least once in their life.
I think COVID did that me a big favor there, because we had 7-8 year clients. Because don't forget, Dubai is quite a fluid place, whereas like North Wales, Conway, where we had the gym, we had 8-year members cancel their membership, and I didn't blame them. Yeah. But in my head, it was a paradigm, like, oh, they're going to be clients forever. Yeah. And it was just that, seeing them cancel the membership, like, this isn't permanent, Ben, but you've been holding back on a career going into being a coach to serve these people, but they will cancel if they need to. And I was like, okay, great time to make a change. So, and
that's interesting, because I didn't look at it that way, but that probably did happen to us. But I just look at it as like, maybe it's Dubai, that lifespan is much shorter. So you do see the people that I have ran marathons with are no longer members, but and I've spent hours and hours and hours. But there's, at no moment am I disappointed or shook or anything. I'm like, okay, like, I know that's going to happen, and it just happened. It's not a big deal.
I think, and what we do is we make a commitment to our past. So, like, I see with a lot of, especially trainers, like I've coached a lot of trainers who want to step into something different. They're about to do something different, and they'll go and sign on a client up for 6 months, and then they've committed to a future which is their past. Right. Yeah. And like, there needs to be that break point where you say, well, actually, I'm not, and I had to step away from a lot of revenue. I had to, there was a space where, in order for me to step from the transformation, like the body transformation business, into my first coaching business purely online, there was just this small pocket of concern and worries. Like, where am I going to get my cash from? Yeah. But we had a really big successful business. Literally in 30 days, we had a really good campaign. Loads of guys signed up, and it was really successful. So I was quite lucky, but that's not always the case.
Yeah, no, I mean, you talk about me taking different shots at the same goal. You're taking big shots at completely different goals. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what I'm actually. It's not, and this is something that I've realised over the last couple of weeks. Is it's not more difficult. It's just different. It's like, you always think, and I always thought about that, is that a shot jumping out of your business and doing something different, it's not more difficult. There's no more difficulty to doing it. It's just different. Walking into a company and pitching coaching is exactly the same as going into a company and pitching a body transformation. It's just different. Yeah. The numbers are bigger, the profit margins can be bigger, but it's not more difficult. And actually, that was a really helpful distinction for me.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in the realm of just trying to get people to. I feel my struggle is trying to get people. Why can't you do it? Like, why don't you believe in yourself? Do you know? They see it as difficult, maybe, definitely different. But I'm like, right, you're here. Like, you've taken the hardest step.
Yeah. Do you know what I think though, Keith, as well? Until someone meets someone like you, until someone has someone like you or Pat or any of the trainers here in their life, they've never had someone who's like literally been all in on believing on them. And I didn't get that because I come from my mum and my dad both like just believed in me. I got so much belief and so much. They've just helped me achieve anything I wanted to achieve with just support. That's all they've given me is great support. And so many people haven't had that. They haven't had parents or guardians or caregivers say, listen, like, you can do anything you want. And I realized that until someone meets someone like you and they have someone say, listen, like, you can do this, they've never had that. And I because I don't know if you had the same, but I had that growing up. And I realized that that's what people really needed.
Yeah, maybe. I definitely had like supportive parents and growing up going for sports and always showing up to games and that kind of stuff, which is interesting. Very unique, very rare, very privileged to have that. I think that's one of the reasons why we go so much on and on about Kilimanjaro, because it's a massive goal and it's so doable, and there's some people who just altitude, mountains, camping, that's not my thing. I'm like, all right, I get that. But the moment I hear someone they're looking like, yeah, I'm kind of tempted, I'm like, right, I've got you.
Yeah, do it.
I've got you. I know. I've seen 50 of you in the last year, and we've put like 10 to the top, easy. So it's just about finding now the dates. Don't do that trip to Seychelles next year. Let's focus on now I'm pushing these buttons. But I really think the people who come into the gym, like, that's the hardest thing. And the way I would explain it to people like me and like you who are fitnessies people, it's like, all right, sign up for 12 months of yoga.
Yeah.
Go be vulnerable in the back of a yoga class.
Yeah.
Commit to 12 months, paid in full yoga, and see how much it's good for you. You're going to get benefit, but it's adjacent to your current goal.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same, do you know? But you won't do it because, like, no, I don't want to be. I'm a guy. I don't want to be.
Oh yeah.
I want to just go. Push
yoga is
weights.
one of those things. I do it, and I always realize like I should do more of this every time I do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think what's another thing, and I think that when
that's how people think about the gym. I do it. I should do more of this, and then they go back over there to the couch.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about the training room, because I love the training room. I'm a really big advocate for what you guys do. When I moved to Dubai, I had no community. I quickly realised I need a community, and I was going to the Mac Hills too. The gym was awful there. The culture was terrible. It was really negative. And you guys came in, you've transformed the gym. Like, honestly, it's been amazing to watch you guys doing what you're doing.
Appreciate that.
I know it's because I saw it pre-training room and post-training room, but one of the things that I loved the most was that when you put a supportive community around people, the environment changes. And there's a really great saying, what one man can do, another man can do. Applies to women as well. What one person can, gender specific, it's like what one person can do, another person can do. But and I think that what we do is we see people in a community doing things that we've perhaps had this like soul goal. I really one day would love to do that. You see someone maybe who you don't perceive as fit as you go and run a marathon. You're like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. And just having that community around you, people haven't had that. They haven't had that. They didn't have it in school. They didn't have it in work because it's like they weren't connected in work. And they join somewhere like this where people are pushing each other and working together. And they all of a sudden, the norm becomes people going out and achieving things. And I think that people have a void of that for a long part of their life until they come somewhere like this. And like I had it in the UK, obviously it was my gym and I had to run it. And I remember I was like, I don't want to do this for people anymore. I want to actually have an experience of it being done for me.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, as soon as I stopped training people, I was like, no, I'm not going to program for anyone for ever again. I'm done programming. And I just almost switched that part of my mind off. I was like, do you know what? I'm just happy for someone to program for me now.
Yeah. I get Chris to do mine all the time.
Yeah. Well, Chris, Robin, their program is phenomenal. And I come into the training room in the morning, I'm like, oh, what a great workout. It's like it's going to be painful, but it's great. But I think that going back to, like, why don't people succeed? They've never had that experience of that support system. And then going back to how I help, like, CEOs, managers, is that part of what I do is I'll say, right, okay, who is your support system? Who's in your corner? And that can be, right, you're going to start going and having a weekly massage, monthly massage. It can be, have you got a psychotherapist because you've got some childhood shit that is holding you back? I don't work on that because it's not my remit. I don't go into the past. So, like, one of the things about a coach is a coach works on the future, a psychotherapist works on the past.
Right,
I know my remit. I'm not qualified to do that. I don't entertain it. I've got my experts that I refer them to, and I say, go and work with such and such. And normally it's a body-based psychotherapy I'll prescribe. Who's your nutritionist? Like, I can do nutrition. I'm qualified to do nutrition, but I don't want to do it. So I'll be like, okay, well, we can do some good bits, but if you want to go and, like, focus in on that for 12 weeks and really understand it, go and work with this person. So what we start to do is build a bench up, and I think I got that from professional sport. And then when you create a supportive community around people of specialists, experts, friends, people, training partners, that's when you start to see amazing goals like flourish. That's the difference. And it's amazing to see how many high performing people do not think like that. They don't think like that at all.
Going back to what you said, like, one person can do what another person can do. Another way I heard, which was quite powerful, was it takes the best of us to inspire the rest of us. Yeah. And you include yourself in both of the us. Yeah. In that one, do you know? Yeah. It's not when you say it, you're the us in both. The best of you will inspire the best of us. The best in me will inspire the best of us. Yeah.
What's his name? There's a trainer online, and when you said before about how heavy you were, and then like your running times, I'm like, there's a guy, and Nick, I think I forgot his second name. I'll have to show him to you when we finish. I can't remember his name. And he's 92 to 100 kilos. He's a bodybuilder, and he's running like 240 marathons, 230 marathons. Wow. And I saw him, and I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. Yeah. This is like, so I love it how because I think he pisses a lot of runners off, because a lot of runners see him and like, oh, he's on steroids, he's on the gear. Whether he is or he isn't, he's still running the time. Yeah. And he's massive. And I was like, go on.
There's literally a little category. It's a thing that was in the 90s and 2000s, and it's actually been kind of squashed culturally because it's called Clydesdales, right? And it's supposed to be that if you're over, I think, 200 pounds, you're technically a Clydesdale, like a runner, a big, heavy, slow runner, but you're running. So the Clydesdales started building their own little community, being like, oh, I'm a 240-pound guy and I'm running a marathon. And then they started to kind of promote each other and congratulate. And then all of the actual runners were like, this is not running. You need to lose the weight to be better at running. You're not good runners. Oh. And it was this weird like community thing. And then the big running events in the States started to like have Clydesdale categories. Like age category, weight. Yeah. They started to have these, and then they had to stop it because it was causing so much.
That's hilarious.
So like you would win the Clydesdale, but like there's a slim 90 kg runner who's like finishing back down ahead of that guy, but he's not. And it was just real weird dynamic. You can look it up. There's a bit of stuff online somewhere about it. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm definitely a Clydesdale, but I'm also not winning any Clydesdale.
Yeah, but I think that's what happens is that you start to see, like you say, you see guys who are that sort of size, and you go.
I see guys running past me who are bigger than me. I'm like, geez, I'm 2 hours in, and now you are gone.
Yeah, and I think that comes from. But there's a difference. It's like it's being around those kind of people that are like that, and they say, come on, you can do it too. And I think that's the support network. Yeah. And I think that's the difference as well, is that there's a difference between a collaboration mindset and a competitive mindset. Some people come to this gym, and instead of trying to collaborate and work with people, they'll compete against everyone else. And that's what I didn't like about CrossFit. I had that a lot in the CrossFit gyms that I went to. It was like I would go in there and it would be like super competitive versus collaborative.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have the right kind of support network.
Well, cool. Well, look, thanks for coming down, Ben. I appreciate you giving your time. You've got a talk happening this Sunday. We'll try and get this podcast out before Sunday so we can push to people and get them in. Free seminar Sunday, 20th of October, 4 p.m. in the gym. Where can people follow you and get a hold of you online?
Yeah, so you can follow me. I'm on YouTube and Instagram, so at Coach Benjamin Owen. I do loads of little snippets to help you with your life, your business, your work, and your performance. And
you have your podcast?
I have a podcast, which is called The Mile Deep. Yeah, Mile Deep with Coach Benjamin Owen.
And is that just on Spotify?
No, it's on all podcast channels.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I moved it to Spotify recently, but it's mainly on Spotify, but it's all over the web. It's
Lovely.
on YouTube and stuff like that as well. So.
Cool. All right. Well, look, I look forward to Sunday. I've done the talk a couple of weeks ago up in Damac, and is definitely a fresh way to look at it. I've done a lot of these self-help things, read a lot of books, listened to a lot of people, and definitely the stuff you talk about from the very beginning of that presentation is different, and it's a good way to look at it. And I was like, I'm happy I came. I'm looking forward to going to it again. So I definitely recommend guys come down. Thanks for coming in today. I know you got a busy day, so I'll leave you get off to it.
Thank you, Keith.
Cheers, bud. No worries. See you guys.